welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Now today we're looking at two cameras. We're looking at the Sony a6600, which we have here. Now I've had this quite a long time. It's my favourite APS-C camera. In fact, it's probably one of my favourite cameras overall. Great handling, great grip, really nice camera to use. But we're actually looking at that in comparison to the updated and the new Sony a6700 that we have here. So what are the major differences between the 6600 and the 6700? Now it may be that you're looking at either buying either or. Which one should you go for? Do you want to save some money and just go for the a6600? Or possibly you've already got the a6600 and looking at upgrading to the a6700? Or thirdly, you're looking at getting into the Sony E-mount system and you can't decide which one to go for. Now, I'm not going to say which one to go for, because everyone's use case is going to be different, and you may not need the specs that the 6700 has, and you may well find the a6600 will suit your needs beautifully, and you can either save the extra money or use the extra money to go towards lenses, because at the end of the day, it is the lens that is the main element to a successful video or a successful photograph. So the lens really is very important, as well as the camera body. Some people would say invest more money in lenses and not so much in the body of your camera. I'm sure there is mileage in that argument, but that's not what we're going to be talking about today. So let's very sort of fairly briefly go through the differences, the key differences between what I think are the key differences between the 6600 and the 6700. Now, as far as handling is concerned, they're both very similar, to be honest. The 6600 has a really nice grip. In fact, I would probably go as far as saying I probably prefer the grip on the 6600 to what I do on the 6700. But both do have really nice grips, and I love the handling of both of the cameras. Now, the 6700 has had its function buttons moved around a little bit, and I'm going to go through that very briefly. On the top here, the 6600 has two function buttons on the top, and it's got a variety of function buttons on the back with a dual switch, which you can switch between two different functions. You can create different functions for that one switch. I find that's okay, but I do find it a bit confusing. You have to have good muscle memory as to what you've set for which position that switch is in. It has got an AF button on the back here, just in the middle of that little dongle, that little switch there. So that's really good for, if you're into back button focusing, you can preset that for back button focusing. On-off switch on the top around the shutter release. But the video record button is on the side of the, really awkward position, is on the side of the a6600, just there. But I've actually pre-assigned the video record button to be on the shutter release. So I find that's a lot more convenient. Now with the 6700, again, the grip is very similar, but I just find a little tighter around by the lens. Although this is a wider lens, you can see the 10-18 lens does come out just a bit, and it's a bit fatter than what that 20mm lens is on the 6600. So the mileage will vary depending on what lenses you're using. They've only put one function button on the top plate of the 6700, because the other function button has been replaced by a video record button on the top there, which is fine, but you can also pre-assign the shutter release to be your video record button. Your on-off switch is in the same location, but they've repositioned it slightly, so it's a bit further in towards the body when you turn it on and off. That I think has been done to help avoid from accidentally turning it on and off, which you can quite easily do on the 6600. I've done that myself on the a6600. It's much more difficult on the 6700 because of the positioning of the on-off switch. Also, on the actual grip, it's now got a front command dial on the grip, which is really, really good. So you can use that for adjusting your aperture, shutter speeds, whatever, and the command dial on the back. So you've got your two, which is quite traditional. That's what most cameras have. The 6600 hasn't got the command dial on the front. There is no command dial around the front here. You're reliant on the dial on the back and this spinning wheel on the back here. Not as easy to use and not as flexible as what it is on the 6700, but I don't see that as a deal breaker. Once you get used to how the 6600 works without that command dial, I think it's fine. It's just a different way of working. Out of choice, I do prefer the 6700, but I wouldn't use that as a buying decision for sure. 6700 has replaced the video record button on the side here with a function button. So they've just moved it basically to the side here, and the record button is on the top, as I said earlier. And also the 6700 has a separate command dial for going between photo, video and slow motion. So slow and quick motion. So that is really, really useful. As a hybrid shooter, that to me is a fantastic upgrade, because you can very quickly go between taking photographs or taking video, whereby on the 6600 it's actually on the PASM dial to go between your video and photography and what have you. A lot more fiddly, not as practical, not so quick to use. The a6600 has a 3-inch tilting screen. It's not an articulating screen like on the 6700. I'll show you that in a minute. But the 6600 has what is fairly traditional actually, a tilting down and a tilting up screen. It goes all the way up, so you can use it for doing your vlogging, doing your selfies and what have you. The only downside with that is when you've got it tilted up like that, any microphones or any accessory that happens to be in the hot shoe. Now both cameras have the Sony multi-interface shoe, so you can plug in Sony microphones into the hot shoe and it'll work directly with the camera. You don't need to use cables or anything like that. I mean, that is fantastic. But the minute you plug a microphone or anything into the shoe, it blocks the screen, so you can't clearly see or see at all what it is you're doing. So bit of a downside, but that is how a 6600 works. Now I do love this for taking photographs. I really do enjoy the tilting screen as a photographer, particularly when I'm out and about. I just find it more discreet. It's not so obvious you're taking photographs. I just love the fact that, you know, you can take low angle shots, you can take high angle shots. Really useful, but it's directly behind the camera body, whereby the 6700 has the now pretty traditional 3-inch articulating screen you find on so many cameras. So it rotates and articulates, which is absolutely super. Super for video, fantastic for video, because when you are using the multi-interface shoe on the top there, that's not going to block the screen. So, you know, brilliant if you're into vlogging. A nice camera for vlogging because it's got this lovely grip, and that works out really well for vlogging. Although I've got the lens cap on the lens, but yeah, that's a great vlogging scenario because you can see yourself clearly, and it's a really, really nice feature. But for stills, not so much. I prefer to have the screen behind the camera for stills. But yeah, 3-inch articulating screen on the 6700 and the 3-inch tilting screen on the 6600. They both have the same viewfinder. I think it's a 2.6 million dot OLED viewfinder. It's a rangefinder style viewfinder on both of them, so they're in the same position. I like the rangefinder style. It makes the camera nice and compact, and I enjoy the fact that, you know, I'm holding the camera up like that, and that's absolutely fine. The 6700 has a brighter viewfinder, and even I have noticed that it is a lot brighter on the 6700 than it is on the 6600. But again, not a real deal breaker, but it's useful to have, you know, that brighter screen. But yeah, it's a nice viewfinder. Neither have the joystick for adjusting your focus. I use the screen. I just move my finger across the screen, and then, well, it does help if I've got the screen available, I just move my finger across the screen and then that sets the focus point, just like using a joystick. But I find that quicker doing it that way than it would do even if it had a joystick. The 6700 has a full touchscreen, where the 6600 has only got the touchscreen for focus, nothing else. You can't adjust the menus. On the 6700, you can pull up the menu from the bottom there. That's your quick function menu. You can go through your menus, so you can go through your different menu structure using the touchscreen. Very quick, very useful, and you know, I really do like that. I particularly like it if I'm out taking photographs and I want to change the focus, the focus detection method, whether it be human, animal eye detect, planes, airplanes, insects, whatever. You just touch and that part of the screen, and then that will change depending on what it is. That's on animal now, and very quick, very easy to use. So yeah, the touch screen on the 6700 is a vast improvement on the screen on the 6600. The buffer on both cameras is exactly the same, 11 frames a second. Interestingly, on the 6700, yeah, it does get confusing as to which one I'm holding, because they are both very, very similar. The 6700 has the electronic shutter the same as the 6600, but the buffer in electronic mode is exactly the same as it is in mechanical mode, 11 frames a second. Just be careful though in electronic mode that you don't get a jello effect. So if you're photographing or filming straight lines, you may well get a jello effect if you're doing fast panning or anything's moving fast in the frame of your image. The weight of the cameras is pretty much identical. The 6600 weighs 507 grams and the 6700 is 496. So they're both around the 500 grams. That's with battery but without lens. The 6700 has the upgraded sensor. It has the 26 megapixel backside illuminated sensor, where the 6600 has the older, and it's quite an old sensor now, the 24 megapixel sensor that isn't backside illuminated. Both cameras have weather sealing, so you're going to have no issues there. Obviously that will depend on the sort of lenses that you're using. Just ensure you're using lenses that have a weather sealing gasket. Otherwise the benefit of weather sealing is not really a benefit. Both cameras feature human and animal eye detect, but the 6700 has the new AI chip, so it's so much quicker and so much better. The actual AI and AF features in the 6700 are quite superior to the 6600. Even I've noticed that dramatically when I'm photographing my cats. The 6700 is a lot more accurate and a lot quicker to find the focus than what the 6600 ever was. So yeah, when I'm out and about taking photographs and I do need to rely on animal or human eye AF, I will definitely use the 6700. Also, it has more AF features than what the 6600 does, and you've got your not just animal IF, it's got bird eye AF, it's got insects, it's got plane and automobiles, you know, so it's got a lot more features as far as AF is concerned than what the 6600 has. Although saying that, the 6600 is very capable, but the 6700 is just, you know, that bit better. The biggest upgrade for me is its video features with the 6700 over the 6600. The 6600 is an 8-bit camera, 420 8-bit camera. The 6700 is 422 10-bit. So it's got a lot of codecs for 422 10-bit. Great if you're into color grading. Far more difficult doing colour grading on the 6600 because it tends to break up quite a bit as it's only a 420 camera. 422 10-bit on the 6700. Also 4K 120 on the 6700 in 10-bit. It is a crop. You get a 1.5 times crop over and above the 1.5 times crop that APS-C already has. But if you're using a wider angle lens, that's not really an issue. You work around that. But I love the codecs that are in the 6700. There's many of them. I really do enjoy using S-Cinetone. That isn't in the 6600, but it is in the 6700. and I just enjoy the video features that the 6700 has. The other one I really enjoy is its AI cropping. It's got an auto crop mode, which is phenomenal. It makes it look like there's a camera operator behind the camera when you're using this AI crop mode, and it works really, really well. So you set the camera to wide angle, and then as you move around the frame, the camera is automatically cropping that image and moving around. So it looks like there's a camera operator following you, when in fact there isn't. You're doing it all solo. So great video features in the 6700, far more than I can cover in this video. So I would highly recommend that if you're into video, don't even look at the 6600, go straight to a 6700. I think that would be fantastic, and you wouldn't regret that one little bit. The only downside with both cameras, they only have the one SD card slot. Now that is going to be an issue for a lot of people that are into professional filming, professional, content creators. Maybe you're doing events, maybe you're a wedding videographer, even photographer. You might want the 2 card slots. I've not had an SD card corrupt on me, but you never know, it could happen. But if you can get around that, now ways of getting around that for video is quite straightforward, using that Atmos recorder, and then you've got internal recording, and you can record onto your Atmos. So that's okay. Although I would say just be wary though, even using an Atmos recorder, it has got a micro SD card slot as opposed to a full size HDMI slot, sorry, not SD card slot, a micro HDMI port on the side there. As micro HDMI as opposed to a full-size HDMI. That's the same on both cameras. So just be careful with what cables you're using. But what they have done with the 6700, they've moved the SD card slot to the side of the camera, which is fantastic, because I do a lot of work in the studio here with the cameras on a tripod, and it's nothing more frustrating than trying to get the SD card slot out the bottom of the camera, particularly when it's on a tripod. So they moved it to the side of the camera. That's great. I was really, really pleased with that. So that's really handy. But on the 6600, again, one SD card slot, but it's in where the battery compartment is, which is fairly traditional for a lot of cameras these days. But yeah, other than that, they're both pretty much the same. UHS 2 card slots. They both take the FZ100 battery, so battery life is really, really good in both cameras. Both cameras are APS-C cameras, Sony E-mount, and that works great for me. They will take the Sony FE lenses, or Sigma or Tamron full frame lenses, but they'll work in the crop sensor mode. So there you go. That's the major differences between the 6600 and the 6700. Now I have both. I'm not selling the 6600. It's still a great video camera, still a great stills camera. But I'm really enjoying the 6700 for its animal IAF and human IAF. It is faster, it's more responsive. I'm also enjoying its 10-bit 422 codecs and the S-Cinetone codec that this has that the 6600 doesn't have. But all said and done, if you want to save a few quid, the 6600 will still produce amazing video. As long as you're not into color grading, it will produce great video and great photographs. So I would say, if you want to save some money, get a 6600, even if you buy a second-hand 6600, and put that money towards lenses. But if you do need the 10-bit 422 codecs that the 6700 has, and you do a lot of portraits, or you're looking at doing a lot of portraits, then the 6700 may well be your better choice. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you found this video useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Hit the like button if you like the content of my videos. Would really, really appreciate that. And remember to take a look at the photographs I've taken with both the 6600 and the 6700. There'll be a link in the description of this video where you can take a look at them on my Flickr or my SmugMug page. It's well worth looking at them on there rather than looking at them on YouTube. So there we go. Thanks very much. Cheers for now. Bye.